and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. A potential strike by Israel on Iran's oil infrastructure is reportedly leading to scrambling among the Gulf states, trying to avoid being pulled into any conflict. Reportedly, they are not just trying to protect their own interests, they are also actively lobbying the US to stop Israel from taking action against Iran's oil sites. Why is that? Because, you see, if Israel goes through with its plans, the countries are worried that their own oil facilities may come under fire from Iran and its proxies. If the conflict escalates, reportedly, the countries have been warned by Iran that they could be next on Tehran's hit list if they allow Israel to use their airspace or military bases. Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar are among the countries reportedly refusing to let Israel use their airspace for any attack against Iran. And why is this happening right now? Well, because Israel has said it will respond to Iran's missile strikes on the in fact, Israel has vowed revenge, promising that Iran will pay dearly. Tehran has responded with its own warning. Any retaliation will trigger widespread destruction. This back and forth is not just rhetoric. It's actually laying the groundwork for a regional conflict that could drag the US into the fray. The country sitting on top of some of the world's most valuable oil reserves are reportedly terrified of what happens next. As per reports, Iran has been reaching out to its Gulf neighbors, trying to persuade them to use their influence with Washington. What is Tehran's goal, you ask? Basically, to prevent Israel from going after its oil production facilities. As per a Reuters report, during meetings last week, Iran's message to Saudi Arabia was clear. If they help Israel in any way, Tehran cannot guarantee the safety of its oil fields. Iran is not just talking to Saudi Arabia. It is reportedly reaching out to allies in Iraq and Yemen, hinting that they could also be drawn into the fight. If Saudi Arabia, the UAE or Qatar allow the country to launch strikes from their country, from their territory, the end result would be catastrophic. The Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, for example, on Wednesday, reportedly held talks with the Iranian Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi. What was the topic of conversation? Israel. In fact, Araghchi's visit was not just a friendly diplomatic stopover. It was reportedly an attempt to rally support and keep the Gulf states from getting involved in what could become a regional war. Reportedly, the fact that Saudi Arabia and Iran, longtime rivals, are even having these conversations shows just how dire the situation has actually become. Meanwhile, back in Washington, reportedly, Gulf officials are in constant communication with their US counterparts. As per reports, they are expressing deep concern about how far Israel's retaliation would actually go. We told you yesterday that US President Joe Biden and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke on this matter, a call, as per reports, described by both sides as positive. But what does that really mean? Are the US and Israel on the same page? Or will the Gulf states persuade the US in stopping Israel from attacking Iran? And then there is the OPEC, led by Saudi Arabia. The organization has reportedly enough oil reserves to compensate for any disruptions in Iranian supply. That is, if Israel's retaliation takes out some of Iran's oil infrastructure. But here's the problem. Most of that spare capacity is located within the Gulf region. And if Iran decides to retaliate against Saudi Arabia or Emirati oil facilities, the world could face a serious oil supply crisis. Comes with far-reaching implications. In fact, reports say a 2019 drone attack on Saudi Arabia's Aramco oil field wiped out over 5% of global oil supply. And there were reports that Iran was behind this attack. But you see, Iran denied any involvement. The question still remains, is the world staring down the barrel of a repeat scenario? You see, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE all have US military bases on their soil, and as per reports, that makes them targets in the event of a war. Let's just talk about the impact of all of this on the global stage. What would it really mean? Just for perspective here, China is Iran's biggest oil customer, and if Iran's oil exports are disrupted, reports say Beijing could be forced to scramble for alternative sources. And then there is the US, of course. As per reports, if oil prices soar, it is going to hit the American economy hard. And with Kamala Harris gearing up for a tough election battle against Donald Trump, a spike in oil prices could spell disaster for her campaign at such a crucial time. As per the Defense Minister of Israel, Yoav Gallant, he has made it clear that when Israel does strike, it's going to be swift, lethal, and completely unexpected. In fact, reports say Israel has a range of options, including routing strikes through Jordan or Iraq if the countries continue to deny them access, if the Gulf states continue to deny them access. And Israel's mid-air refueling capabilities would reportedly allow their jets to bypass the Gulf airspace altogether. But there is an issue here. Reports say the Gulf states know that even if Israel finds alternative routes for its strikes, they are still at risk. A missile war could break out at any moment, and Gulf oil facilities could still be the targets, and which basically could throw the global oil supply and the world economy into chaos. The question is quite simple. Can diplomacy prevail, or is West Asia hurtling towards a scenario where even if certain countries do not want things to head that way, the situation will be inevitable? 2 months into Ukraine's bold foray into Russia's Kursk region, cracks are beginning to show in Ukrainian ranks. What began on the 6th of August as a lightning incursion to divert Russian forces has now led to growing concerns among soldiers on the Eastern Front. Our next report from the front lines of Ukraine decodes how the strategic objective of forcing Russia to shift its focus from Donbass to defend Kursk appears to be faltering, to say the least. And by the way, this comes amid Ukraine's deserter crisis, dividing the country and in a way destroying the morale of the army. Take a look.
The Kursk offensive, launched on August 6th, marked a bold move by Ukrainian forces. It represented the largest incursion on Russian soil by a foreign army since World War II, catching Moscow off guard. However, the euphoria of early gains has given way to a sobering reality check. The primary objective of the Kursk offensive was to force Russia to divert troops from the Eastern Front, particularly the Donbass region. This strategy aimed to lessen the pressure on Ukraine's hard-pressed forces in the east. months into the operation, this goal remains unfulfilled. Russian forces continue their steady march in the Donbas region, inching ever closer to the strategic city of Pokrovsk, a vital logistical hub for Ukrainian forces. The capture of Volodar by Russian forces and their approach towards Pokrovsk underscore the intensifying pressure on Ukrainian defences in the east. The failure to draw significant Russian resources away from the Donbas has left many Ukrainian soldiers questioning the wisdom of the Kursk gambit.
At the moment when the operation began in the Kursk region, we didn't feel that the enemy had withdrawn their forces. Active battles were fought here. The offensive continued. Maybe the enemy withdrew his forces from some other direction or from the reserves, but we didn't feel any significant changes here.
It's not easy to get some rest here. And if we are talking about moral condition, I saw not that many people who can say that they are happy to be at war or that they are happy the war is happening. We are trying to support each other. We talk constantly, trying to help each other. But despite that, we are in an alert state constantly, ready for combat. We don't have other options.
While Ukraine still controls much of the territory seized in the initial days of the incursion, the broader strategic impact appears limited. Russian troops made their most substantial monthly gains since October 2022, advancing 477 square kilometers into Ukrainian territory in August alone. President Zelensky is in Europe with a desperate plea for additional support. He met the NATO chief, the UK Prime Minister, the Italian Prime Minister and the French President to discuss his victory plan. The aim of our support, as I've said again today to President Zelensky, is to put Ukraine in the best condition possible to set up a negotiating table for peace. A negotiating table, as we have said many times, that does not mean surrendering, as too many have suggested in a cowardly fashion. Holding a slice of Russian territory could theoretically strengthen Ukraine's hand in any potential negotiations. However, with Russia rapidly gaining new territories and the conflict showing no signs of abating, the prospect of talks seems distant. Ukraine's primary ally, the US, faces an election that could see the return of Donald Trump, whose skepticism towards supporting Ukraine is well known. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau came face-to-face at the ASEAN summit in Laos. This is the second time, by the way, that Trudeau has come face-to-face with the Indian Prime Minister since relations went cold in a way in September 2023. The last time Trudeau and Prime Minister Modi spoke face-to-face was in June on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Italy. India has said that ties with the Canadian government cannot be repaired unless Ottawa takes strict and verifiable action against those who actively pursue anti-India activities and have conspired to promote hate, disinformation, communal disharmony and violence in India as well as Canada, quote unquote. This as Trudeau told the reporters that he and Prime Minister Modi had a brief exchange. In fact, the Canadian Prime Minister said that he will not go into details about what he spoke about, but said that the safety of Canadians and upholding the rule of law is one of the fundamental responsibilities of any Canadian government, and that is what he will stay focused on. Ties between India and Canada went southwards in a way after Trudeau accused the Indian government of being involved in killing Sikh separatist leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Sources say India continues to expect that anti-India Khalistani activities will not be allowed to take place on Canadian soil, and that firm action, which is lacking thus far, will be taken against those advocating violence, extremism and terrorism against India from Canadian territory. Canada has witnessed many anti-India rallies which have been taken out by anti-India Khalistani elements. The rallies and the comments continue despite New Delhi's concerns over them. In fact, Niger, designated a terrorist by India in 2020, was gunned down by masked men outside a Gurdwara in British Columbia in June last year. 4 Indian nationals were accused of first-degree murder and conspiracy in connection to his murder. The high-profile case is currently working its way through the Canadian court. India has denied any involvement in that killing, calling the allegation absurd. Prime Minister Modi, who is in Laos to attend the ASEAN Summit and the East Asia Summit, did not have a bilateral meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister. The Indian Prime Minister, however, met a series of world leaders, including meeting with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese of Australia, one of Canada's Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance partners. Prime Minister Modi also met the US Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, and the New Zealand Prime Minister on the sidelines of the summit as he extended condolences to Secretary Blinken on the loss of lives due to Hurricane Milton. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi also addressed the East Asia Summit in Laos as the only leader in the room who had participated in most number of East Asia summits. He was given the rare honor of addressing the summit immediately after the host and the incoming chair. The Prime Minister focused on multiple issues pertaining to the Global South and pronounced the East Asia Summit as a pillar of India's Act East policy. Prime Minister Modi called for peaceful South China Sea as he asserted the need to follow the principles of freedom of navigation and airspace in the region. Prime Minister Modi said the focus in the region should be on development and not expansionism. Let's now talk about the US presidential election. The race is heating up. The question also is, how will the poll results impact Elon Musk? What's the connection, you wonder? Well, our next report gets you that answer and the complete story. Take a look.
Elon Musk has tied a significant part of his financial future to the success of Donald Trump's presidential campaign. And he isn't hiding his fears of what might happen if Trump loses. Musk believes the key danger lies in the repeal of Section 230, the legal framework that protects social media platforms like X from being held liable for content posted by users. Without this protection, X, which has already been struggling financially since Musk's acquisition, could face a flood of lawsuits. According to Musk, the platform would be instantly bankrupt if Kamala Harris takes office and moves forward with the repeal. But Musk's fears aren't limited to the financial health of X. He's also hinted at the possibility of personal legal action against him if Harris wins the presidency. Musk suggested he could become the target of lawfare, a term he used to describe the use of the legal system to dismantle political opponents. The Tesla CEO has also been an outspoken critic of Harris and her policies. He believes that a Harris administration could come after him with federal prosecution as a form of political retaliation. Meanwhile, Donald Trump recently said, "We need to protect our geniuses." The billionaire, however, remains wary, feeling that a Harris victory could place both his personal and professional future in serious jeopardy. Musk has also expressed alarm over the broader economic picture, particularly the US national debt, which now carries an annual interest payment of over $1 trillion. Musk warns that as the debt continues to balloon, businesses like Tesla and X could face growing financial pressures. A Trump defeat, in his view, could accelerate these risks. The intersection of economic instability and political uncertainty leaves Musk in a vulnerable position. From the potential collapse of X due to legal changes to the threat of federal prosecution, Musk's future, much like his all-in bet on Trump's victory, is fraught with high stakes and multiple layers of risk. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Florida is battling destruction from Hurricane Milton, which has killed at least 10 people so far and left millions without power. In fact, authorities and the people there are still bearing the brunt, but they are taking solace in the fact that the storm did not trigger the catastrophic surge of seawater, as was previously feared. Our next report telling you more.
After Hurricane Milton barreled across Florida, spawning deadly tornadoes, rescue crews waded through flooded streets to check homes and assist residents.
The storm was significant, but thankfully this was not the worst-case scenario.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said that while the storm was not as bad as feared, the damage was still widespread.
We are just beginning damage assessment. We have 10 confirmed fatalities. Our understanding is that those fatalities were caused by the tornadoes.
At a White House briefing, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said storm-related deaths so far were caused by tornadoes, but that the death toll could rise. Milton downed power lines and left more than 3 million homes and businesses without power.
The house vibrated when the gusts really picked up, and I threw up twice.
Destroyed homes were left in the storm's wake, as well as toppled trees and debris on roads. Some neighborhoods experienced significant flooding, but the Tampa Bay area appeared to have escaped the storm surge that had prompted the most dire warnings. In St. Petersburg, the roof was torn off Tropicana Field, a staging area for first responders, and a large construction crane collapsed. As of Thursday afternoon, Hurricane Milton had plowed into the Atlantic Ocean, but residents were not yet in the clear. The state was still in danger of river flooding after as much as 18 inches of rainfall.
The high-stakes U.S. presidential election is just weeks away, and election rallies are bristling with strident rhetoric. Big names are stepping out to support their presidential nominees. The blue camp is bringing out the big guns. In the last leg of campaigning there on Thursday night, former U.S. President Barack Obama addressed a rally in battleground Pennsylvania, a crucial state, to galvanize support for Kamala Harris.
Former U.S. President Barack Obama made a passionate case against Donald Trump in Pennsylvania Thursday. He was headlining a rally in a state that may be key for Democrat Kamala Harris to win the White House, while she spent the day campaigning in Nevada and Arizona. Obama hit back at claims made by Trump that Biden and Harris withheld aid to Republican areas in the wake of Hurricane Helene.
Just made the stuff up. Everybody knew it wasn't true. When did that become okay?
Obama remains popular with the party base, and this was the first of several events he plans to do in states seen as crucial to victory in the coming weeks. They're aimed in part at spurring young people to show up for the November 5th election. September data from Tufts University showed voter registration among young people in 34 states is down compared with 4 years ago. Harris's campaign has also been struggling with men in the polls, and Obama zeroed in on male voters drawn to Trump who may see bullying as a sign of strength.
I am here to tell you that is not what real strength is. It never has been. Real strength is about working hard. and carrying a heavy load without complaining. Real strength is about taking responsibility for your actions and telling the truth even when it's inconvenient. Real strength is about helping people who need it and standing up for those who can't always stand up for themselves.
The Trump campaign dismissed Obama's remarks and influence, with the Trump campaign spokesperson saying, quote, "If anyone cared about what Obama says, Hillary Clinton would have been president." Obama has tried to act as a campaign closer before for Democrats in 2016 and 2020. According to an aide, Obama has so far helped raise $80 million for the 2024 presidential campaign. Meanwhile, Trump was in Detroit on Thursday, where he made a speech to the Detroit Economic Club in a push to appeal to auto workers, promising tax breaks on car loans and a ban on Chinese vehicles entering the U.S. Polls show Trump and Democratic nominee Kamala Harris are locked in a tight race just weeks ahead of Election Day, with the outcome expected to be decided by slim margins in battleground states like Michigan and Pennsylvania.
And let's talk about the red camp now. Donald Trump addressed an audience at the Detroit Economic Club in Michigan, another critical battleground state in the 2024 race to the White House. The Republican leader once again started the conversation with the deadly hurricane storming through the U.S. and slammed the Democrats for not doing enough.
I'd like to congratulate governors of Florida, Ron DeSantis, Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia and South Carolina, Henry McMaster. They were really hit hard, and they've done really a fantastic job. The federal government, on the other hand, has not done what you're supposed to be doing, in particular with respect to North Carolina. They've let those people suffer unjustly.
Donald Trump's comments in the past few days have created a huge controversy. Many of his statements have also been rebuked by people in his own party. At least 3 congressional Republicans, including North Carolina Representative Chuck Edwards, have condemned fellow party members for repeating Trump's conspiracy theories about the storms. Speculation over the well-being and the whereabouts of the president of Cameroon, Paul Biya, has become a hot topic across the continent. 91-year-old Biya was last seen in public at the China-Africa Summit in Beijing a month ago, and since then he has missed several events, including the UN General Assembly in New York and the International Organization of La Francophonie Summit in France. While the condition and the exact whereabouts of the leader remain unclear, the government has announced that Biya is alive and well in Geneva. The announcement was made in response to rumors on social media regarding Biya's death. The authorities said that the information circulating on social media and mainstream media is being spread by people who want to see Cameroon devolve into chaos. They have further assured the public of Biya's return, but did not specify a time. The opposition and the civil society groups, meanwhile, say they are concerned about the leader's absence and health. And they have further asked the government officials to present Biya to civilians instead of simply saying that he is alive. In fact, some opposition political parties have proposed uniting behind Akere Muna, an anti-corruption lawyer, as a candidate in the October 2025 presidential election. Biya, who is Africa's second longest-serving leader, faces various challenges, including the secessionist movement in Cameroon's English-speaking province that has resulted in deadly clashes with security forces. Let me ask you this. Are you addicted to your cell phone? If yes, how much are you willing to pay to get rid of that addiction? Well, what if we tell you that there might be a cure for it, but it is by no means cheap. It costs around £40,000 a week. According to a report in The Times, one of the world's most expensive rehabs, known to offer treatments for addiction to Class A drugs, also eating disorders, is now reportedly offering solutions for prolonged screen time. But the question is, can this rehab clinic actually cure your addiction to mobile phones? Staying at this expensive rehab facility for nearly 1 month would basically mean you get a £160,000 bill. So yes, like we said, it is expensive. In some cases, people don't leave for 5 whole months. Nestled in a Swiss village, it also has its doors open for those who cannot get enough of shopping, work, social media, or technology addictions, maybe having a doom scrolling problem or hanging around too much on social media applications. There are 2 detox suites. Which can be accessed by guests using a hidden entrance. The entrance is basically reserved for the who's who often check in under pseudonyms. An exception is only made if one is very unwell. The detox rooms are secluded with only 4 staff attending to 1 patient, a nursing station that is manned 24/7. All that's great, but can phone addiction really be cured is the question. Well, the report says while this cannot be clinically diagnosed yet, there are behavioral signs. Number 1, by identifying an unhealthy obsession with one's device. Number 2, by detecting the negative impact the above has on personal relationships. Number 3, being negligent and distant in general. According to a mental health clinician in the facility, tracking screen time, setting time limits on social media apps, and creating tech-free zones can be ready solutions. But the arrangements that the clinic provides not only facilitate this, but also reportedly take things a few notches higher. It basically ensures that the privacy of the patients is protected. Huge efforts are also made to keep them apart from one another. It also makes sure the screen time of people is reduced incredibly, way lesser than what they had just a week before getting to the rehab. To break this down, even a week before the rehab clinic, before entering the rehab clinic, the daily average screen time for most people was 5 hours and 12 minutes. However, just 2 weeks after the rehab, after people enter the rehab clinic, the daily average screen time dropped to just 2 hours and 44 minutes. Clearly, the results speak for themselves. In fact, the clinic also urges you to look out for emotional red flags like feelings of anxiousness or irritability when not using technology and relying on the screen as a stress buster. Now, how often do you do that? Have you tried setting up a restriction on the amount of time that you spend on social media applications or on your phone in general? Have you tried and failed? And would you ever consider going to such a rehab? Write to us and let us know. Our next story focuses on the concept of mind over money and happiness over success. What are we talking about? Well, a new study claims wealthier people may have fuller wallets but emptier hearts. Take a look at our next report to find out more.
In a world where balance sheets, personal net worth, and social media appearances are celebrated, new research suggests that money can actually lead to more unhappiness. It seems that while wealth may fill wallets, it often empties hearts. Surprisingly, wealthier individuals tend to grapple more with love and relationships. The relentless pursuit of material possessions can transform love into a ledger, leaving emotional connections feeling bankrupt. Studies show that those fixated on accumulating riches often report lower relationship satisfaction, proving that you can't buy happiness, but you can certainly rent dissatisfaction. So what's the alternative? Prioritizing our mental and emotional well-being could be the key to redefining success. Experts suggest that instead of chasing dollar signs, perhaps we should be chasing joy, connection, and purpose. A mindset shift from materialism to mindfulness allows us to invest in what truly matters: our relationships, passions, and personal growth. The tide appears to be turning. A 2013 Life Twist study revealed that only about 1/4 of Americans still equate wealth with success. This shift suggests that many are ready to cash in their coin purses for a more fulfilling currency: happiness. As we reconsider what it means to be successful, Let's remember that a rich life isn't necessarily measured in bank accounts but in the love we share and the happiness we cultivate. After all, the true wealth of life lies not in what we own, but in how we connect. Business Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Hindi cinema's Shahenshah Amitabh Bachchan turns 82 today. The legendary superstar is considered one of the greatest and most influential actors in the history of Indian cinema. While a lot about him may be out in the public domain, here's a look at some of the lesser known facts about Big B, as he is lovingly called. The Indian cinema icon, who is celebrating his birthday today, greeted a sea of fans that gathered outside his residence in Mumbai. But did you know, before venturing into the field of cinema, Amitabh Bachchan attempted to become a radio host, but he was turned down by All India Radio. While many may think that Saath Hindustani was Amitabh Bachchan's debut film, limited number of people know that Amitabh Bachchan began his career in films in 1969 as a voice narrator in Mrinal Sen's Bhuvan Shome. The angry young man, as he is fondly called, gave 12 consecutive flops before his first big hit, Zanjeer. And after portraying the role of Inspector Vijay in Zanjeer, Amitabh Bachchan was named Vijay in more than 20 films. His character in Coolie was also supposed to die, but following the on-set accident that nearly claimed the superstar's life, director Manmohan Desai decided to alter the climax, and Big B's character was kept alive. And apart from being a brilliant actor, to say the least, Amitabh Bachchan is also gifted with another talent. He is ambidextrous, which basically means he can write with both hands equally well. He has demonstrated this skill on several occasions, like signing autographs for his fans with both hands. Amitabh Bachchan is not only famous in India, but also internationally. He was the first Asian actor to have his wax statue displayed at Madame Tussauds Museum in London. This was in the year 2000, and since then his wax statues have been installed in other branches of Madame Tussauds across the world, including New York, Hong Kong, Bangkok, Singapore and New Delhi. Onto the world of sport now. There was a remarkable result in the world of cricket. Arguably one of the most incredible wins ever in the history of cricket. England wrapped up a record-breaking innings and 47-run victory in the first test against Pakistan in Multan. No team in the history of Test cricket has won by an innings after conceding 556 in the first innings. Pakistan started the final day at 152 for 6 after an extraordinary team effort from England on day 4. Harry Brook and Joe Root combined to take England to 823 for 7 declared, which is the highest score basically against Pakistan in Tests. England's bowlers all but wrapped up the game, but a late rear guard from Salman Agha and Amer Jamal delayed the inevitable. The two players continued to resist in the first hour of the day, with Salman getting to his half-century with a boundary of Gus Atkinson. But he did not last long after that, with Jack Leach sneaking through his defences and ending the 109-run stand. The end was swift, with Leach sending back both Shaheen Shah Afridi and Naseem Shah in the 55th over. In fact, Jamal was left stranded on 55, with Abrar Ahmad unable to bat because of injury. Now, this, by the way, is the third instance of England winning a test in the Brendan McCullum era, despite conceding 550 plus in the first innings. And Pakistan have now lost 6 tests in a row, and they have not won at home since 2021. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
This week on Tech It Out. Since October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we will share with you some best practices that can help you stay safe online. We show you a device that can improve the life of stroke patients and find out about the latest developments in the world of robotics. This and more on WION World is One at these times.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
We bring you this week's